Welcome. The topic of today's discussion is personality. This is a chapter 5 of the continuing organizational behavior lecture. We have already discussed about what is personality and what are the determinants of personality. If you remember in the last lecture, while we were discussing individual differences and work behavior, the importance of personality and importance of the different determinants in developing personality. So, in this chapter, the objective of this chapter is to understanding the personality structure, understanding the relationship of personality and behavior, and measuring personality. So, while we are talking of personality and your structures and everything. So, this school, these are divided into different schools of thought according to like personality and what it is and how it is developed, and we will look into the different perspectives of looking into personality, and we will start with the psychoanalytic perspective given by Sigmund Freud. According to Freud, there are 3 levels of awareness like conscious, preconscious and unconscious. Conscious tells about all things we are aware of at any given moment. Preconscious deals with everything that can with a little effort be brought into consciousness, and unconscious is the inaccessible warehouse of anxiety producing thoughts and drives. What it is like unconscious is what we don't want, like we are not aware of it, and it consists of the major part of the structure of mind, and it is like if you are thinking of this is called an iceberg model, the major part of the iceberg which remains beneath the water, which is not visible from the top, is the unconscious part, and it is an inaccessible part which we are not aware in our consciousness, and what happens, and it is a storehouse of the anxiety producing thoughts and drives which may lead to the some of the like behaviors which we need to be careful about. Like unconscious is the one of the primary feedback from the unconscious desires which try to get expressed in the conscious minds are some of the primary sources of some of the major diseases that we have in that we study while you are studying in the field of clinical psychology. So, the structure of personality as defined by Freud is consisting of 3 components: the id, ego and the super ego. Id is the biological basis of personality. It consists of inherent characteristics of individual and is collection of the instinctive drives, urges or needs, all demanding immediate gratification. It is irrational, it is impulsive and adhering to pleasure principle. So, ego is what is the mental force controlling behavior in a well adjusted adult. Ego pursues pleasure. Ego is also capable of logical reasoning and learning by experience. Function of ego is self preservation. Superego is the voice of the parents and their moral standards as perceived by the child. So, if you can understand like id is the major, if you can draw a model like this, model like this where where maybe this is the water, and yeah, if you take it to be the, this one is the major part which is unconscious part of us, this is pre-conscious, and this is conscious, and then we try to find out, like, try to draw lines like this. Yeah. Then maybe we can tell, like, this portion is majorly the id part, and this part is, this slice of the cake is the ego part, and this part is the super ego. So what happens if you see, like, all these, the super ego being the voice of the society is sending down, it's trying to suppress, the, like, thoughts which are there in the unconscious, which is accepted to be more of the not to be expressed anxiety producing thoughts, the taboo thoughts which have been suppressed through generations, and it's lying tightly closed sort of thing in a locker of the unconscious. Is the mores of the society, the voice of the parents, do this, do not do that, this is not good to do these things, these are providing a downward pressure. And the desires of the unconscious, because it's based on the pleasure principle, it's trying to move up. As a result, there is a pressure from both the sides on the mind of the person. Now ego tries to balance these. Ego is actually working under two bosses who are demanding two different things, and the one boss is the superego and the other boss is the unconscious, and ego has to balance these two forces in such a way that, so it is like, well, that person becomes a well adjusted person, and it gives shape, it helps to express the unconscious desires in such a way, like keeping also into concern the voice of the super ego, like it helps to rather express the unconscious desires in a socially acceptable way. Like what we can, and this is what again plays a major part in your, like, this can be utilized in marketing concepts, advertisements also. If we remember, there is a advertisement where the two children are talking. One is telling like, don't take a, one child is telling, I want a candy, but if you know, like, if I take that candy, my mom will come and give me a dishum and I'll get a beating from my mother if I take a candy. So that desire for taking the candy, knowing fully well that the mother is going to like beat the child, is the unconscious desire. Now the superego's part is, I'll give you a thrashing, I'll give you a beating if you are going to take that candy or ice cream, whatever it is the superego's voice. Now the toothpaste comes in as the ego, which tries to balance both these opposite acting desires and tells, okay, you can take the candy but brush your teeth with this toothpaste so that your tooth doesn't get decayed, and when you brush your teeth with this toothpaste, you don't get the dishum also from your mother. And so what happens is, you can balance both opposite acting demands on yourself. So this is the role of the ego in keeping a balance, it's keeping a mental force controlling behavior and keeping a balance between the pressures faced from the unconscious and pressures, oppositely acting pressure felt from the superego. But in doing that thing, the ego itself gets tensed. This is a major act. The ego also gets tensed in continuously maintaining this balance, and in order to defend itself, in order to protect itself, ego develops some mechanism which is called the defense mechanism of ego. And so what it is, like, ego tries to defend itself from anxiety via defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms are unconscious mental processes. So it's not that its ego does it consciously, but it is the unconscious mental processes employed by the ego to reduce the redirect anxiety by somewhat distorting the reality. So the different types of defense mechanisms are: first is repression, keeping anxiety producing thoughts out of the conscious mind. So keeping anxiety producing thoughts, we don't want that it comes to the mind, conscious mind. So what we do is we repress the thoughts. Reaction formation, replacing an unacceptable wish with its opposite one. What we do is, like, if unconsciously we are hating someone, but what happens, we don't want to accept the fact, like, I hate that other person so much. So what we do is we develop an opposite reaction, which is either love or obedience. Now this is very important to know in the organization's perspective, because if we get an employee as a supervisor, we get to know someone as a boss, like, okay, we meet someone who is always of the yes boss category, is always saying yes, 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 is an obedient, which is too much of obedience, then maybe we have to question it. We have to know, like, whether it is like the true nature or it's a reaction formation. So over degree of anything we have to be conscious about, because it can be among peers also, because that may lead, those could be reaction formation. So over positive behavior, if it is noted, could be part of reaction formation. Displacement is when a drive directed to one activity by the id is redirected to a more acceptable activity by the ego. So this could be utilized for creativity of the in the organization, because when a drive is directed to the one activity by the id, what ego does is redirects it to the another activity. And like, if you want to break some old things and do something new, this force could be utilized in the creative aspect. Like, if you are not liking something, not liking a system, so why not move it to creating something new? So this could be utilized for creativity. Sublimation, displacement to activities that are valued by society. So this is again a sub part of displacement. So instead of destructive thoughts, sometimes it can be channelized to work which is valued by society and which adds positive value to the organization also. projection, reducing anxiety by attributing unacceptable impulses to someone else. This is one of the crucial factors which we need to be careful about in organization, because sometimes in organization we hear words like this person doesn't like me, or this person is trying to play tricks with me, this person is complaining against me, this person is trying to harm me. All these types of complaints we hear, but could be this is a projection of what I really want to do to the other person. And because I cannot accept that these unacceptable impulses lie within me, what I do is I project it to the other person and feel happy and feel comfortable in thinking like the other, it is not me, but it is the other person who is conspiring against me, who is trying to harm me, who is trying to blame me. But if asked like, do you have a proof of it, they will try to gather proof. They will selectively tell you about certain things which will try to prove that their word is truth. But again, we have to be very cautious about these aspects before, as decision makers, we arrive at certain decisions. Rationalization, reasoning away anxiety producing thoughts. Like what we try to do, we find reasons for anxiety producing thoughts, and this has happened because this was this, it is not my fault, it is the other person's fault, because the train was late, so I came late. So anxiety, whenever there is anxiety within the person, what we try to find out, reasons to support our actions and weave away the anxiety producing thoughts, which is called rationalization. Regression is retreating to a mode of behavior characteristic of an earlier stage of development. This is sometimes taken into while maybe we are asking for certain favors from our bosses. So like if you want to go early, now we'll learn more while you're talking of these things in non-verbal communication. Like if when an adult is talking to an adult, sort of like, then maybe you will not get the early leave. But if you just go and regress back to in your non-verbal cues, you give the regress back, like you make a request from your child state of mind to the parent state of mind of your boss, maybe sometimes it's possible that you can get the early leave. So sometimes you utilize these factors for getting some favors also. Or sometimes while you are too much tense, while too much anxious, sometimes people regress back to the earlier state where these anxieties were not present. So though these are defense mechanisms of ego, and as the OB practitioners, we or as people in the organization, we need to be conscious about these defense mechanisms, because in our daily life these shows their reflection, and if we are not aware of these factors, we may try to frame reasons which are not the proper answers for the behavior of people and why they are doing certain things in the organization. According to Freud, the personality development takes place through 5 stages. These are called psychosexual stages of development. Now, the purpose of discussing this in this platform of organizational behavior is to know like what it results. Like though these are early stages of personality development, but the result, as a result, the pattern that it develops, it moves forward along with the person till his death. And so like in organization also, you around yourself you get to work with so many different types of people with the different personality patterns. And if you know like why this has developed, what is the reason why this person is behaving in this way, it will make your interaction with the person much easier. So, for that reason these stages are discussed over here. The oral stage of oral stage of personality development starts from 0 to 18 months and it is centered on the mouth. So, fixation at this oral stage means fixation means like due to certain deprivation at these, this is also related with the, it's important for the people to know like how to deal with the children, because each deprivation or dissatisfaction and or over satisfaction, whatever you tell at each of these stages may lead to certain personality pattern. So, oral stage, it is centered on the mouth. Fixation at oral stage results in like dependency, immaturity, optimism or pessimism, sadism, oral aggression and of suspicious nature. So, if you find people who are of maybe of these natures, then you know like the fixation of this person was in the oral stage of development. And like if some beyond counseling some treatment is required, then we may try to delve deep into these layers and try to find out the reason why the person is behaving in this way. Anal stage, which starts from 18 to 36 months during the time you get your toilet trainings, and during this thing the any fixation, it focuses on the bowel and bladder elimination, and fixation at anal stage results in stinginess, obstinacy, obsession, sadism, oralliness. Phallic stage 3 to 6 years, it leads to Oedipus complex, then comes the latency stage and later on like the genital stage. So, the anals, when you are dealing with the Oedipus complex stages and latency and genital stages, these may be related to the your different harassments, sexual harassments that people do face and or they do in the workplaces, and these stages may provide answers. It is not that everybody face harassment or everybody like behave in odd ways towards the other gender, but so why a person does this thing, what is the fixation at this personality stage which may lead the person to behave in these ways, will help you to get answers and solve certain crucial organizational problems. So, again a word about here is that it is not that like dependency is bad or your obsession is bad. It is not that it is all negative, but the degree to which it is shown, if it is too much or too less, any one of these, then it is the matter of the degree which is we are more concerned about over here. Next classification is of course Jung's typology. According to Jung's theory of psychological types, we are all different in fundamental ways. One's ability to process different information is limited by their particular type, and he told like these are there's a 16 types. Now, what we dealt with Freud's thing is the dynamic theory of personality, like why a person is behaving in certain way. This classification is called like the type theory, means like what type of person, how we can classify people based on certain parameters, and these are called the type theories. And accordingly, according to Jung, like people can be either extroverts or introverts depending on the direction of their activity, thinking, feeling, sensing and intuitive nature according to their own information pathways, judging or perceiving depending on the method in which they like process the perceived received information. Extroverts versus introvert. Extroverts are directed towards the objective world, whereas introverts are directed towards the subjective world. They are more focused inside. The most common differences between extroverts and introverts are extroverts are more interested in what is happening around them, are open and often talkative, compare their own opinions with the opinions of others, like action and initiative, easily make new friends and adapt to a new group, say what they think, are interested in new people, easily break unwanted relations. While we see who are introverts, introverts are interested in their own thoughts and feelings, need to have own territory, often appear reserved, quiet and thoughtful, usually do not have many friends, have difficulties in making new contacts, like concentration and quiet, do not like unexpected visits and therefore do not make them work well alone. Sensing versus intuition. Sensing is an ability to deal with information on the basis of physical qualities and is affection and its affection by other information. So, intuition is the ability to deal with information on the basis of its hidden potential and its possible existence. So, the differences again are sensing types see everyone and sense everything, live in the here and now, quickly adapt to the situation, like pleasure based on physical sensation, are practical and active, are realistic and self confident. Intuitive types are mostly in the past, in the future, worry about the future more than the present, are interested in everything new and unusual, do not like routine, are attracted more to the theory than practice, often have doubts. Thinking is the ability to deal with information on the basis of its structure and function. Feeling is the ability to deal with information on the basis of its initial energetic condition and its interaction. Differences are thinking types are more interested in system structure and patterns, expose everything to logical analysis, are relatively cold and unemotional, evaluate things by intellect, right or wrong, have difficulties talking about feelings, do not like clear up arguments or quarrels. Feeling types are interested in people and their feelings, are easily pass their own moods to others, pay great attention to love and passion, evaluate things by ethics and good or bad, can be touchy or use emotional manipulation, often give compliments to please people. Perceiving and judging. Perceiving types are motivated into activity by the changes in situation. Judging types are motivated into activity by the decisions resulted from the changes in situation. Differences are in perceiving types act impulsively following the situation, can start many things at once without finishing them properly, prefer to have freedom from obligation, are curious and like a fresh look at things. Work productivity depends on their mood, often act without any preparation. Judging types do not like to leave unanswered questions, plan work ahead and tend to finish it, do not like to change their decision, have relatively stable workability, easily follows rules and disciplines. So, what we can see from here is like all these four different things from the Jung's typology that we are having, like extrovert, introvert, thinking, feeling. Then we are having judging, perceiving, and sensing, intuitive. All these, if we can draw a matrix regarding this, we will be having like different categories of people. Like if you can classify like extrovert, introvert, then we are having your thinking, feeling, then we are having perceiving, judging, and then you are of course having your sensing, intuitive. If you are having this, then what we can have is 16 different combinations, like either ETPS, IFJI, EFPS, whatever. In this way we can have 16 different combinations of major personality differences, which will vary in these two ends of the two continuum. And if you can understand, because there are so many differences in the personality types that will happen, so different jobs can be also having these type of personality patterns, because some jobs may require your extrovert nature or your feeling nature or your sensing nature or your judgmental nature, and accordingly we can map people with those type of jobs. Or if it is like introvert, it's not that being an extrovert is good and in being an introvert is bad, or being thinking is good or feeling is bad, or perceiving is good, judgmental is bad, and then sensing is good and the intuitive is bad, or the other way around. It's all same, and what it is required, like for different situations and for different types of jobs, we require different types of structures, different types of personality, and some will excel in some condition while the other is going to fit better in the other type of condition, and our job is to map these things properly. So, it is nothing as that like this is good or that is bad. Stage perspective. This stage tells about like the stages of development and what are the major choice points, like if you are having those things, like if these values are fulfilled, then what you develop, and if these values are what you want, and if you do not get it, what other things may develop. Like in stage 1, which is the infancy of life, which is the first year of life, what people want is trust, and if you get the trust, then you develop its trust, otherwise you develop mistrust. In stage 2, which is the early childhood up to 3 years of age, like if people want autonomy, if it is there it's good, otherwise you develop shame and doubt. Stage 3, which is the play age, which is up to 5 years, they people like to take initiative, children like to take initiative, and if they are not encouraged in doing that, they develop guilt of not conforming to the parental expectations, guilt of like maybe while taking initiative, if it is not encouraged, like you break something, some toys and all these out of experimenting, and you're punished for it, then what develops is a feeling of guilt, because I have not been able to meet my parents' expectations. Stage 4, which is latency, which is 6 to 11 years, is in industry, like again it's you want to take voluntary efforts for certain things, and you get your recognitions for it. Otherwise, you develop inferiority. Stage 5, which is adolescence, which is from about 12 to 20 years, you want to identify with certain roles, you want to find out the purpose in your life, and that leads to ego identity. If that is not clearly defined to you, what you develop is a role confusion. Young adulthood from 20 to 24 years is the major nearest for need is values for intimacy, and if you are not getting that, you develop isolation. And middle adulthood is 25 to 60 years. What you give is generativity versus stagnation, and maturity and old age is ego integrity versus despair and disgust. So what you find, the major stages from adolescence, young adulthood and the middle adulthood are particularly relevant for organizations, because the choice point, the focus that you are focusing at this point of time is varying. So, the focus for the young adults and the adolescents, and for the middle aged people, it's very, and it may help you in planning the reward plans or career plans for these individuals, based job enrichment, enlargement, the type of groups to be working in, the roles that these individuals have to be playing, the shifts in their responsibilities to be taken, whether they will be in the mentoring role or not. Because see, at the time of like the career progression, all these things, because sometimes people want to give back to the youngsters, like if you look at the middle adulthood stage, when you're approaching your 60 years, more a mentorship role if possible for you, it's more suitable for you. So these types, knowing these factors helps you a lot in your planning for the people within the organization, a proper planning for the people in the organization. Social perspective. Horney in 1945 stated that the effect of social influence on personality extends to the process by which an individual adapts to his or her social context. According to her, some people develop neuroses because in their early age they conclude that maladaptive and counterproductive ways are the best ways to deal with their context. Horney proposed that these people try 3 ways to deal with the interpersonal problems: is moving towards people, which is compliance; moving away from people, which is detachment; moving against people, which is aggression. So, though discussed in terms of like your neurotic behavior pattern, but we can utilize these 3 movements to know like how people behave in social situations according to their nature, and for the same situations 3 people, based on their personality pattern and background, they may behave in 3 different ways, and we have to understand why they are behaving, why some people is moving towards other people, why somebody is moving away and somebody is moving against in some situations. Trait perspective. A trait is an individual's characteristic in thought, feeling and action, either inherited or acquired, and refers to tendencies to act or react in certain ways. So, if you can see, a trait is a character. If you remember the definition of personality we told about, it's the individual's unique characteristic of behaving in a certain way, and trait is the unit, like it's the individual characteristic in thought process, feelings and action, either inherited or acquired. So, you both have the hereditary endowment and the environmental endowment for it, and refers to the tendencies to act or react in certain ways. Traits can be of particular categories like motive traits, goals that guide behavior of individuals like achievement, ability traits, individuals' general and specific capability and skill for knowing, perceiving and reasoning, temperament traits like optimism, depression and various energetic traits. Stylistic traits refers to gestures and styles of behavior unrelated to specific tactics to achieve a particular goal. So, we can classify the different characteristics under these four broad headings. Again, we have different schools, we have different people contributing to this trait perspective, and all put categories trait as cardinal trait, central trait and secondary trait. Cardinal trait, this is a trait that dominates and shapes a person's behavior. These are rare, as most people like a single theme that shape their life. So, just pointing out one cardinal trait is very difficult, because people's behavior is a mixture of different traits and different themes that shape their behavior pattern. Central trait, this is a general characteristic found in some degree in every person. These are the basic building blocks that shape most of our behavior, although they are not as overwhelming as the cardinal traits. So, like usual example is given over here is honesty. So, cardinal trait is one specific dominant trait that is shaping one behavior, but it is very difficult to find, and but central trait is of more general in nature, that you find what is expected of different persons, some values that is expected and what is praised by the society sort of. So, these are the central traits. Like secondary trait is again, it is a characteristic seen only in a very close group sort of situation, like these are suppose exposed only in certain circumstances, while it is not exposed in certain other circumstances, but these need to be included to know the total human nature in complexity. So, if you can just tell like, okay, this person is generally of this nature, then we are talking of the central trait. This person is moved, is passionate about these things, and this is what, like this can do anything, we love to do anything for nurturing this theme of life, which is what is defined by his cardinal trait. And though generally this person is of this nature, but sometimes this person, suppose somebody is generally like very cool, like social in nature, and it's very pleasant personality, but sometimes that person may also become angry if situations around this type sort will define his secondary trait. Cattle's 16 PF personality factors saw trait as important units of personality that have predictive value. So, what is the contrast with Alport is that we felt like traits are abstract concepts, and he defined trait more into like two categories, like one is called the surface trait and the other is the source trait. According to Cattle, surface traits are those traits which are readily apparent, like others can view it and know, but surface traits are based on people's perception of personality, and but it does not tell the reality of the person, the underlying personality dimensions. Source traits refers to the deeper pattern underlying personality. These source traits emerge despite differences in testing situations and whatever. So, these source traits are the basic defining traits of the personality, and which are more or less stable in nature, and this based on this Cattell defined his 16 personality factors. Like if you can see, like this personality factors, the primary factor is warmth, and it has its two opposite continuum, like it's impersonal on one end is impersonal, distant, cool, reserved, detached, formal, aloof, which is schizothyma, and warm, outgoing, attentive to others, kindly, easygoing, participating, likes people, which is affectothyma. When it comes to reasoning, then it comes to like on one side is concrete thinking, lower general mental capacity, less intelligent, unable to handle abstract problems, and the other right hand side is abstract thinking, more intelligent, bright, higher general mental ability, fast learner. When it comes to emotional stability, then we have like on the left hand side reactive, emotionally changeable, affected by feelings, emotionally less stable, easily upset. Right hand side you have emotionally stable, adaptive, mature, faces reality calmly. When you are talking of dominance, left hand side we have submissiveness, like differential, cooperative, avoids conflict, submissive, humble, obedient, easily led, docile, accommodating. Right hand side we have dominant, forceful, assertive, aggressive, competitive, stubborn, bossy. When it comes to liveliness, serious, restrained, prudent, taciturn, introspective, silent. Right hand side we have lively, animated, spontaneous, enthusiastic, happy, go lucky, cheerful, expressive, impulsive. Rule consciousness, we have expedient, non-conforming, disregards rules, self-indulgent, which is low superego strength. Rule conscious, dutiful, conscientious, conforming, moralistic, rule bound, which is high superego strength. Self reliance, we have group oriented, affiliative, a joiner and follower, dependent. Right hand side we have self reliant, solitary, resourceful, individualistic, self sufficient. Perfectionism, we have tolerates disorder, unexacting, flexible, undisciplined, self conflict. And right hand side we have perfectionist, organized, compulsive, self disciplined, and high self sentimental. Tension, we have relaxed, placid, tranquil, that is low ergic tension, and right hand side we have tense, high energy, impatient, driven, frustrated, overwrought, time driven, that is high ergic tension. So, if you can if you just see, like sometimes it appears again like again like when you are talking of again see the sensitivity, vigilance factors and apprehension, all these things are there. So, openness to challenge, social boldness, trust. If you have a re-look into these of the primary factors and the two opposite ends that has been mentioned as the characteristics, then it may appear okay, this side is having this type of personality is good, and having this type is not good. But we should not arrive into certain sort of judgments like this, and because some situations demand that you behave in certain ways, and certain types of people are more suitable for certain types of jobs, and again we have to choose people accordingly as far as the OB perspective is concerned. So, from the point of view of organizational behavior, we have to be keeping a very open mind, and without being judgmental about what is good and what is bad, we have to map the personality pattern of the individuals with the requirements of the job and the job situations, and map the traits that the person is having with the traits required by the job. When you are talking of the type perspective, it refers to different types of individuals, and with the type, it makes a grouping of different traits and it defines the type of people. It started with like Hippocrates, who tried to classify people based on the color of bile, and like yellow bile, black bile, high blood pressure and excess phlegm and all these. And next we got like people were characterized based on the different characteristics they are having, nature of the bile color, and these were some very early works on the type perspective. Ising classified types based on the three factors like introversion, extroversion, stability, neuroticism, impulse control and psychoticism. So, if you can see the hierarchy, habitual responses define traits and traits define the types of individuals. So, extroverts are sociable and impulsive individuals who like excitement, and whereas introverts are quiet. We have already reviewed it while we were discussing the earlier concept of neurotics are emotionally unstable individuals whose anxiety levels are disproportionate to the realities of the situations, or are psychopaths. Psychotics are generally more severe in the disorder from neurotics. They are aloof, inhuman, aggressive and insensitive to the needs of others, but are also creative. In the OB area, we are more concerned, we are more like we are more dealing with the big 5 model of the, like when you are dealing with the employee's personality pattern, and these big 5 model was given by McRae and Costa in 1997. It tells about openness to experience characterized by imaginativeness, sensitivity, intellectualism, artistic disposition, emotional stability, conscientiousness, like characterizes people who are preserving, dependable, responsible. They relate. So, and it related, and if you can see that related traits are also listed alongside. Agreeableness characterizes people who are good natured, trusting and cooperative. The traits are soft hearted, ruthless, trusting and suspicious. Extroversion characterized by a nature which is outgoing, social, functioning and assertive. The traits are sociable or retiring, and fun loving or sober. Based on these, again you can classify people based on the two extremes, on the two end of the two continuum, based on this like openness to experience, like what are the 2 points and how far you lie in the 2 points. Accordingly, like Meyer-Briggs type indicator is also like classification that you do, and you lead to 16 different types based on it. Like it's again like questions that you ask about your favorite world. Do you prefer to focus on the outer world or on your inner world? Is called extroversion versus introversion. Information, do you prefer to focus on the basic information you take in, or do you prefer to interpret and add meaning? This is called sensing or intuition. Decisions, when making decisions, do you prefer to first look at logic and consistency, or first look at people and special circumstances? Answer to this will give you whether that person is thinking or feeling type. Structure, in dealing with the outside world, do you prefer to get things decided, or do you prefer to stay open to new information and options? These are called judging or perceiving type. So, again you have these classifications, and these 4 opposite pairs of preferences define 8 different ways of dealing with information, which in turn leads to 16 psychological types. And these Myers-Briggs type perspective is development development on your this perspective of mainly the Jung's perspective, and then later on drawing from the other perspective of Ising and all this. So, this is the latest that we are using in the OB scenario to find out the personality indicators, like the 16 different psychological types that have been formed, and we are trying to map it with the job situations. Now, all these 16 different personality psychological types will give rise to different types of temperaments within the person. So, we will look into these different types of temperaments in our next lecture on personality, which is to be continued. Thank you.